Raikan Topaini is for Thai drama lovers only. Hello, Sawadee and welcome to Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. I'm Axelle, and before we talk about which Thai drama we're talking about today, that was a little convoluted, I do want to make, sadly, an announcement that this will be the last episode of Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas, at least for a long while. I feel like this series, unfortunately, didn't resonate with my previous audience that much. And in 2026, I really want to put energy in things that resonate with people or serve me in some type of way. And as a very creative person who always has so many ideas going on, so many projects in her head, I would honestly rather put my energy in other projects that might be more successful. So I wanted to thank everyone who took their time to watch these podcasts. I really appreciated every comment, every view, and honestly, I loved doing Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. It really reconciled me with Thai dramas. I fell back in love with Thai dramas through doing this podcast. I had so much fun, and I want to assure you that, first of all, I don't think I'm going to stop watching Thai dramas in a very long time, but also I might still from time to time pop up with a video essay on this channel. Before starting Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas, I hadn't posted on this channel for over a year, because again, the effort each video essay especially demanded was about 50 hours of work, and the views didn't justify that amount of work. So I was really excited to do a little bit more low effort content with Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas, as each episode took me about 10 hours instead of 50. So that was pretty good, but unfortunately it didn't resonate, and that's fine. It's kind of sad, but it's fine. So yeah, this will be the last episode, and let's just get into it. Let's circle back to my greeting, which I do at every episode, and this is the last time that I'm doing it. So Sawadee, welcome to Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. I'm Axelle, and the Thai drama we're talking about today is Head to Head. Let's get on to the first impression. So my first impression of Head to Head was that I was not gonna watch this show. Or I obviously discovered it on the GMMTV lineup, like every other GMMTV show. And I do like Seekin. I do have to say that Seekin are one of the few GMMTV BL pairings that I actually quite like. I did like Only Boo. I thought it was a very aggressively mediocre show, but honestly, that was carried by their chemistry and especially Kin's acting. And then I also liked their Mutelov series, which was a little bit more moody, on pressure. It was very much like coming of age, I would say, love story, and I ate it up because if you don't know, coming of age is like my favorite genre. And I didn't really care for Head to Head until I was bored. It's usually how this starts when I end up watching a show I hadn't planned on watching. It's usually how it goes. I was bored. I was like, let's try Head to Head. I think it looks quite fun. Because one thing about me, I kind of like enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers. I honestly think rivals to lovers might be better than enemies to lovers in certain, instances. And I do like Seekin, so I was like, out of all the GMMTV BL shows that were released in 2025 that I didn't watch, I wanted to choose one with a ship that I at least know I enjoy. And so I went for it. Let's get on to the synopsis. So the story follows Jay and Jin. They are both fashion students, and they have the same friend group composed of Jin, Jay, Van, Farm, and Mai. We'll talk about them a little bit later. So Jin is played by Kin Suvijak. Jay or Jerome, it's his full name, which I'm not sure there's many Jeromes in Thailand. I was really thrown off by that, but low-key, that was kind of a slay that made me think of one of my favorite Lizzo songs, Jerome. Take your ass home. So then we have Van, played by Java Bodama. We'll talk about Van. Okay, we'll talk about him. And then we have Farm, played by Sir Pachara. And Mai, played by JJ Shayakorn. And so the story follows mostly Jay and Jin, whose moms are best friends. They live in houses right across from each other. It was giving a little bit bad buddy, okay? And which I'm a famous, like, bad buddy hater, by the way, but anyways. And they have always, since they were kids, like, grown up together and always been in a sort of competition, cursing at each other, wanting to race each other, always having a very petty, kind of childish rival frenemy relationship. But at the same time, they are friends. They are in the same friend group. Their parents are besties. And so it's a kind of, very special relationship, which is frankly what enticed me into the show, because I thought it was a very interesting dynamic that we don't see every day, as well as I do love a good banter. I talked about it on my Burnout Syndrome episode 2 weeks ago, that I really love a good push and pull, a good banter. I think that's really what makes a ship that I'm really gonna love these days. I'm really into that shit these days. And also one day on the first episode, Jay, so they go on a racing track. By the way, the racing track appears in like 1-2 episodes and then never again. The owner of the racing track, by the way, is played by New Titi Poom. I was like, oh my god, hi, little cameo, okay. And Jay gets into an accident. And from then on, Jay becomes completely different because he starts having visions of the future. And at first, the visions of the future are very much soft and romantic of him with Jin when he's supposed to hate him. But slowly also, the visions become more and more about bad things happening to him and Jin. And so this takes what would be a pretty simple plot of like childhood best friends, hating each other, being rivals, always cursing at each other, but being secretly in love with each other, to another level. And I did like this kind of layering of plots, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the writing. So now on to the characters. So for the character, the main character, I went into this, I always talk about the main characters. So the main characters of a show are, yes, the like two people falling in love, the main people falling in love. But I feel like in these, there's always a main character. And I was pleasantly surprised because usually I always say it's almost always like 98% of the time, the bottom being the main character, because the audience, which is mostly femme or femqueer people in general, will just relate to them more than the top in general. It's very gendered. I don't always love this, but whatever. And this time I really like that it was actually Jay, so the top, Jerome, who played by CJ Shart, who was the main character. Even though the show actually we see him first through Jin's eyes, Jay is definitely the main character, and I was happy about that because for once we get to see C's acting a lot more than Kin's, which I did really appreciate, and I really liked C in this role. Okay, in my opinion, he really ate. So, Jerome is kind of the perfect guy. He's good at everything. He's very arrogant and teasing towards Jin in kind of like a mean way. It's very clear from the beginning that like Jin, I just realized I didn't put on the lighting. Fuck! Wait a sec. That's so fucking much better. Oh my god. Okay, I'm so sorry. The lighting was not on for the first like 15 minutes of this. amazing, I love this. Okay. So Jerome is very much kind of always the winner in his and Jean's relationship, in a way that at the beginning of the show, he is a little bit annoying. And I kind of hate when a show makes the top always the one kind of winning, while the bottom is always the one kind of like losing or like letting the top get his way. You know what I mean? But here, Jerome is gonna suffer for this, brief superiority at the beginning of the show. And then we have Jean, played by Keen. Jean is very much also very competitive, very cross with Jerome, but it's very clear from the get-go. And I think we learn in like episode 1 or 2 that he's been in love with with Jerome for a very long time. He actually confessed his love for Jerome at like 7 years old. I thought this concept was iconic as fuck. I think it's so like rare to see queer children be like openly queer and be in love and confess their love without like politics being brought into it, without them being sexualized, because like grown as straight adults love sexualizing children and especially like queerness in general. And I thought it was so wholesome that like a 7-year-old Jin confessed his love to a 7-year-old Jerome. Like I thought that was so fucking cute and honestly quite iconic. So Jin, you can tell that he's very much like into the like teasing and racing and like competition thing and like frenemy thing, but it's mostly to cover up for the fact that he wants to kiss Jerome. Okay, very much so. Then in the friend group, we have Van, played by Java. Van is a very important and interesting character. He is, how to describe him? That's the thing. He's so interesting and so layered that it's kind of hard to describe him. I think, so Van is a player. He's someone who loves partying, hooking up with random people. He's very flirty, very... Wait, why is the second lamp not open? Wait a second. Ow! I'm like, what? Now the second lamp is on. Oh my god. This is like the filming gods telling me, bitch, you better wrap Axel's Guide to Thai Dramas up. This is your last episode. Shut the fuck up. We're not even gonna give you lighting. So, Van is very much a player, very, flirty, very teasing. And you can clearly tell that kind of from the get-go. And he's kind of obsessed with Farm, whom we're gonna talk in a second. And Van is very much also a very kind of sad character. He lost his parents, and so he doesn't want to return home because his home is empty. And he's a very much a lonely, kind of very sad character that hides it by being very promiscuous and very nonchalant about everything. And I thought he was a very interesting character, especially for a side ship. I thought Van and Farm were very interesting, and I did like them pretty much. They kind of lost me towards the end a little bit, but I did like them. And then we have Farm, played by Surf. So Farm is kind of the perfect guy. He's super handsome. He's rich. He's like definitely in love with Van and always kind of taking care of him, being like boyfriend material. And at the same time, I thought that Farm also has kind of some anger issue. At some point, he does get angry at Van, sorry. He does get angry at Van, justifyingly so, but he knows that Van is allergic to smoke from cigarettes, and he blows smoke on him. And I thought that was like a really dick move. I understand being angry, but I thought that was kind of the only bad side of Farm we did see, which is that he has some anger issues. And then we have Mai, played by JJ. Mai is definitely the comedic relief. He's too much. He's kind of over the top. Kind of like, it's so funny because I think now comparing to AJ's character in Burnout Syndrome, Mawin, their names are also a little bit similar. So Mawin and Mai, I feel like both of them were kind of tonally off compared to the rest of the show, be it in Burnout Syndrome for Mawin and Mai for this show. But in Head to Head, it works a little bit better because it's a lighter show. It's kind of a depressing show as well. But in any case, yeah. And I thought Mai was sometimes a little bit too much, but he was kind of fun. He's kind of the like fifth wheel, with his friends who are all gay and in love. And honestly, that's iconic. Next we have, Jeanne, who is Jin's mother. So she's a supposedly single mother, but it turns out that, it's a long story. Basically, Jin's father, he was a very famous actor, and when people found out that he had a girlfriend in Jin's mother, they harassed them and harassed especially Jin's mother. So they decided to hide the fact that they had a kid together, Jin, and the dad literally exited Jin's life for like 20 years, or for like 14, 15 years. And yeah, he's gonna reappear, spoiler alert. Next we have Jen, who is Jerome's mother. So we have Jan and Jen. So sometimes I was really confused about who was who. And we have Jerome's father, who has no name. Like, he doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's a girl's world. It's a mom's world in here. Okay. Now onto the cast and acting. I thought the cast was really nice. It's a small cast. As I said, like in my Burnout Syndrome review, GMMTV is really trying to not spend much because they're producing so many shows that they have to allocate a bigger budget to only a handful of shows. And so Head to Head was, I think, one of their lowest budgeted show in terms of money. I don't think they put a lot of money in it because a lot of the same locations come back. There's a very restricted cast, but honestly, I think for this show, it actually worked. It worked a lot more, for example, than in Burnout Syndrome. And so the cast, in my opinion, was really, really good. I liked everyone here. I liked everyone's acting, especially. I thought the acting was very solid, especially against C, in my opinion, really carried this show. He has really the burden of carrying the more emotional scenes of the show. And I thought that it was a really fun show with a good cast and a great acting. Next onto the writing. I thought the writing of the show was honestly quite solid. So this show kind of goes through phases where at the beginning of the show, the first 3 episodes, I would say, is very much like rom-com because Jay starts having like these hallucinations and dreams of him being like very romantic with Jin, and kind of obviously freaks out because he's never liked Jin like that before, and he's never thought of Jin like that, and he doesn't understand, which is very much understandable, right? Like, if you have a close friend that you also are kind of the rival of, you guys are always like competing in stuff and swearing at each other, obviously you're gonna be thrown off if you start having visions of the future where you guys are all like cozy and nice to each other and soft with each other. It's definitely very, rom-com tropey at the beginning of the show because we have obviously like Jay freaking out and Jin being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And one aspect of the show that I really, really loved, especially in like the first 2-3 episodes, was the banter between Jay and Jerome, between Jin and Jay. I thought they were so fun like that. And I was kind of sad because I immediately knew that the banter would be gone as soon as they would start dating. Unfortunately, I feel kind of sad because I feel like very few shows kind of, the reason why so many people love enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers is because there's so much banter that is a lot more abrasive than in other types of tropes where it's much more like, oh, wow, like we're flirting right now. The banter is the flirting, even when it's not read as flirting by the characters. And so I really enjoy that, but I feel like, and that's a common criticism of these kinds of tropes, is that usually when the two characters finally get together, all that banter just disappears and they suddenly kind of become different people and become so soft. And I do understand. I do think a couple, for example, especially at the beginning of the show, Jay and Jean are very much like very aggressive against each other. And it wouldn't be healthy in the long run for them as a couple to continue be that aggressive to each other. But I wish they would have found a way to keep some, at least like a part of the banter, inside the show. I thought it would have really added to it and made it feel really special. Because unfortunately, one of my least favorite aspects of the writing is that like Jay and Jean kind of become very soft quickly. Because obviously Jean has been in love with Jay for a very long time, but I did like the aspect that they take their relationship quite slow, that Jean is like, you know, for you have seen all of these visions of us in the future. You literally have seen us be in love. But for me, literally a week ago, we hated each other. So it's kind of hard to make the transition from like, oh, this guy that I've liked forever and ever, literally now likes me back because he's seen visions of the future. And so I kind of like that adaptation time that they gave to the characters of Jay and Jean. And honestly, I really liked Jay and Jean. Spoiler alert. I really liked this pairing. Actually, I liked both pairings in the show. Did I love them? Maybe not, but I did like both of them. And overall, I thought the writing was good. One thing that I didn't love was, I think Farm and Van towards the end spend a little bit too much time apart, and it's kind of like, I feel like in some points as a like secondary couple, I thought they were quite developed, but towards the end I thought the development kind of went through the door, and I wished we would have gotten like maybe just a couple more scenes, a couple more background scenes, because they do like develop. We learned that Farm has a complicated relationship with his family, and his family like is very important. I think they are the owners of the university they go to or something. Like they are a very important family, but Farm wants nothing to do with them because he has a lot of disagreements with them and they want to kind of control his life. I thought that was an interesting thing to bring up, but they just bring it up and never really develop it. It's not intertwined with the story of Van and Farm. And I did like Van like grieving his parents, and obviously that's a very hard thing to be, especially when you're an only child, which I could understand because I'm also an only child. So I did like these aspects, but I just felt like because we didn't see Van's feelings for Farm be that genuine most of the show, it was kind of hard to root for them in the end. And I thought them getting back together was a little bit rushed, if you will. Or at least if not rushed, it wasn't justified enough, in my opinion, if that makes sense. So apart from that, I thought the writing was honestly very solid. I thought this show really balanced, and that's a hard thing to do. It balanced the more like lighter elements with actually deeper, sadder topic, especially in the second half of the show. Jay becomes very paranoid, very anxious. He completely changes. The Jay we know in the first episode and the Jay we know in episode 8 or 9 or 10 is so completely different because he's being tortured by the visions of the future he's having. And I thought it was so honestly brilliantly done. It was kind of, in a way, karmic justice that this happened to Jay, because again, Jay had always been on top with his relationship with Jean. He always won. He always was the one who didn't like Jean back, but Jean kind of suffered in silence and pretended he wasn't bothered by the fact that Jay didn't like him back for like 10 plus years. But in the end, kind of Jay is the one to get all these hardships. And we have Jean helping him through it. but he also wants to shelter Jin. And he doesn't tell him, for example, that in one of his visions, he saw his mom die. He saw Jin's mom die, because obviously that would be so traumatic to hear. And we can see Jae becoming a more and more serious and kind of haunted character throughout the show as he tries to change the future. And he's like, basically everything rests upon me, because if I don't try to change the future, these things and these things and these things are gonna happen. And I thought it was really cool. I honestly do like shows that like want to change the past or change the future. I think they are very interesting, and they are very anchored in like a very human desire. I think we again all have wanted at some point or another in our lives to change the future, and or the past. And I really, really like that aspect of the writing, that it really tethered on like being very serious at times, and also having some lighter moments, more romantic moments. I thought it had a good balance, and it made it really interesting and made me want to continue watching this show. So overall, I thought the writing of this show was honestly really solid. I think my biggest gripe with it would be that I wish we would have still had some banter after Jae and Jin get together. And also I didn't really love or understand fully the storyline of Jin with his father, because although his father supposedly left them for years and years, and probably did send money to them, to the mom, to help, probably, I'm hoping, especially since he's like rich and a star, but he literally also, I honestly, and maybe, I don't know, but I honestly think my mom being harassed and followed by media is, in my opinion, a lot less worse. And especially since in general, media is gonna get bored. Like, the news cycles very fast. So she would have been harassed for like up to a year or two. And that was it. And I'm not saying this is fine, by the way. I'm not saying this is cool. But I would prefer my mom being harassed for a year or two. And yes, probably needing to go to therapy for her mental health. And it really affecting my parents' relationship. But me still having my dad in my life, rather than my life literally abandoning me, quote unquote, for our own good of the family. I don't think that was justifiable. And Jin, who really hates his dad throughout the whole show and really resents him, I would say justifyingly so, forgives him very quickly at the end. And I thought that was kind of, you guys know how I feel about forgiving kind of toxic parents. And although the dad isn't classically an example of a toxic parent, I think what he did, leaving his family, quote unquote, to protect them, was toxic. Because when you're a kid, having your dad disappear and say, I'm not your dad anymore, which is what he said to Jin, is not something that is gonna heal. It's gonna stay a wound in your heart forever and ever and ever. You know? So in my opinion, the dad leaving was in fact a lot worse than their family getting harassed or whatever. But I think that's kind of the end. Yeah, again, I wish that Farm and Van towards the end were a little bit more developed and didn't, like, them getting back together wouldn't feel so rushed. And I do wish that we would have seen like Van's feelings for Farm more than him being like, oh, do I like Farm? Why am I even dating Farm? Why? You wanted to date him. So, hello? So, I feel like I wish we would have seen Van really loving Farm for real, even before they broke up, but not being able to handle it because, again, he is kind of a mentally ill kind of person, who needs a lot of therapy because I think he doesn't want to get attached. He loves relying on Farm, but also I think that he's scared of relying on Farm on some subconscious levels. But apart from that, I thought the writing was really good. I think the characters were very well developed for a shorter show. Wait, is it 10 or 12 episodes though? Wait a sec. Oh no, it was 12 episodes. That's why it was that developed. Okay. That makes so much more sense. I thought, yeah, the writing was really good. I think the characters were well developed. I liked the moms. I thought they were fun. And I thought they were also developed like enough to fit the plot. And yeah, I really liked the writing of the show, which was surprising because honestly, when I picked up this show, I really thought that it would be like kind of dumb fun. And in my opinion, this was so much more than that. Next, on to the cinematography. You know what I'm gonna say. It's gonna be very, very basic. This show in particular, I thought was especially basic because they have very, 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 very limited locations, even more than other GMMTV shows. That's why I'm saying the budget, I think, for this show was very low compared to some other bigger shows at GMMTV, because it was like the same 5 or 6 locations recycled for like 95% of all the scenes. There were maybe a few scenes at the beach or like stuff like that were, yes, a little bit different, or at the like racetrack, but that was kind of it. So in my opinion, the cinematography is basic as fuck. I can't really say it's good. I'm sorry. Next, for the pace, I think the pace of the show is really good. Actually, at the first, I was like, oh, this is rushing, because Jay and Jean get together very early on. I think it's by episode like 3 or 4. So it's very much early on, but I feel like it actually made sense. So when they got together, I was like, this is way too rushed. You guys probably know that I love a little bit more slower burn, something that is being lost right now in Thai dramas. I feel like they don't know how to do slow burn anymore at all, which is shocking. But I feel like here it actually made sense for them when I watched the rest of the show, to be together quite early on, because when they get together, it's not like, yeah, happy ending. First of all, they have to reconcile the past, the way that they hated each other and they were, rivals for so long, with being in love and being boyfriends kind of all of a sudden. But also then we have to reconcile, but also then Jay has to deal with the fact that he's seeing visions of the future where Jean is dying, where his mom is dying, where really dramatic and horrible stuff is happening, and he has to fix it. So in terms of pace, I thought this show was really good, because when one kind of arc or like climax of the story was kind of done, another one picked up. So it never quite felt like, oh, okay, like the show could have been 6 episodes. I thought the 12 episodes were actually needed and well done. And next we have the ships and chemistry. So now let's start with Jay and Jean. I thought Jay and Jean were really, again, I loved their banter at the beginning of the show, but I also loved their relationship once they got together. I thought they were really good at communicating and being very like mature with each other, which I really appreciated, especially since they had been so immature and so bad at communicating prior to that. So they really, it's maybe not the most realistic thing that they like switched a flip, but in my opinion, I thought that was really well done. I thought they had really great chemistry, and they were very sweet couple. I thought it was very interesting also to see just a freshly gotten together couple have to deal with very high stakes, like one of their moms dying, or one of them dying, or getting in a car accident, or stuff like that. I felt like it was interesting to see frenemies turned boyfriends having to navigate and deal with such a big obstacle. And I thought, in my opinion, that's kind of, I think I've said it before, but I really hate when a show puts 2 characters together and then there's nothing else. There's no more plot. Especially nowadays when a lot of the shows put the characters together very early on. And so in my opinion, the best love stories are once the characters are together, they have a big obstacle to deal with afterwards together, that shows their partnership, that shows how they deal with conflict, how they get over hardship as well, mentally and physically and all that stuff. And I thought here, seeing Jay and Jean go through all this, they get into accidents so much in the show. At some point, both of them have like not a plaster, but like a bandage at the same exact spot on their heads, which was kind of ridiculous, but they did point it out in the show, and they literally took a picture together because it was so like goofy that they literally got hurt at the same exact place on their forehead. And so I thought that they really, really worked because they felt very grown once they got together. And I just really loved, they were like very ride or die for each other, willing to communicate, willing to like take it slow. And I really, really liked Jay and Jin. And then for Farm and Van, I thought they were honestly couple wise, they were more interesting than Jay and Jin in some way. And I thought they were very like giving elements that I really enjoy in love stories, which is more kind of the ache, the desire, the unsaid things. I kind of like more angsty, more, more tense love stories. And I thought that Farm and Van were really much that, because I also thought I do really need to give the actor of Van his flowers. Well, honestly, everyone in this show, I've said the acting was really great. But Farm's actor was really good at doing heart eyes, but Van's heart eyes were even more lethal. Okay. Van's like softness, the flirtation, the way this actor played Van made him very lovable, even though he normally is a huge red flag. Okay. He's kind of like, Van is kind of a character who has always gotten his way with everything because he's cute and people like him. And so he's been a player and he's been like flirtatious and he doesn't really take into account other people's feelings. Yet because of the portrayal that, is it Surf or Java? That's Java did for Van. I thought Van was really lovable despite it all, even when I thought he was kind of a dumbass. And yeah, I thought he did an amazing job. The chemistry between Farm and Van, that's some good shit. Okay, I'm excited for their multi-love episode because that's some good shit. Okay, that's some good shit. I do have to say that. And I thought that they were a very interesting ship. I thought they worked very well. I love a good friends to lovers story. Again, I wish they had been more, I felt like the beginning of them was really great. The end was good. And kind of the middle, I wish they would have been developed a little bit better in a way that kind of maintains the tension instead of like kind of confusing the viewer. But I did like both ships. I thought they had really great chemistry. So yeah. Next onto the music. I did like the opening credits music. I thought that was quite nice. But apart from that, I didn't notice the music. It's gonna be the same thing I say in most GMM TV shows. Very forgettable. Yeah. Next, the costume design. So obviously, most of the time they are at school, but they are fashion students. I thought honestly the costume design was nice, but could have been better. I thought that like as fashion students, they could have taken it like even more into like giving each character their very distinct, appearance and look. And I felt like everyone kind of dressed the same. Yeah. I feel like the costume design could have been taken so much like more, considering they chose to make these characters fashion students, which we never is very much tied into the plot. Like we do see them like use a sewing machine like once, I think. And the mom is also a seamstress. So it does check out that Jean, wants to work in fashion. But in general, I felt like the costume design for a show that chose to put the characters in fashion should have been more bold. And I wish that like each character's fashion had really highlighted their personality a lot more, but it didn't. So the costume design, Next, on the rewatchability, honestly, I would rewatch this show. Will I, like, realistically rewatch it? No. I really don't have time for rewatching shows at the moment at all. But will I rewatch it eventually? Probably. Maybe one day I might. I think the reason why it's a good rewatchable show in my eyes is that it's kind of like an easy show to watch. It's not a show that is very stressful, as the scenes where Jay is in distress or can't sleep because of the visions he's getting about like catastrophic events happening to Jin, was like kind of sad. It was never an option in my mind that they wouldn't have a happy ending. So although like the acting there was really good and these scenes were a little bit stressful, in general, this show was mostly a fun ride, an interesting ride, and I thought it was mostly very entertaining. Again, I didn't feel bored at all. I felt like the pace was near perfect. And I think that makes it an easy show for me to rewatch, because it's a show that I can watch or skip a few scenes ahead, and I don't need to be focused from beginning until end. And also I do think that the balance between the like more romantic scenes, but also actually having a plot, was a lot better than a lot of GMMTV shows. Like, you guys know that a lot of the criticisms I made on BL or GL shows on this series, Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas, have always been that a lot of the scenes were like, it felt like a fan service compilations of like one scene after the other of the characters like being cute together or being in love. But the thing is, I also need the plot to get going. You know what I mean? And here I thought the balance between the romance, there's enough romance to make you like happy, kick your feet, and like make your heart like happy, but there's enough plot to make your brain happy. So I would honestly rewatch this show. Will I? Probably not soon, but I would. Next, my enjoyment out of 5 stars. I'm gonna give this a 4, simply because during the time I was watching Head to Head, I had other shows that I enjoyed more, that I was more like waiting every week for the episode to drop rather than Head to Head. So I'm gonna give it a 4, which is still very good. I honestly had a lot of fun in front of this show. Again, it's not, I thought it did what it set out to do well, if not better than I thought it would. And honestly, I thought this show deserved a little bit higher viewership. I saw that it didn't really trend that much. And honestly, I think this show was really, really good. And I feel like if this show had been like made by Wabi Sabi Studio or like another production company that is like, yes, smaller than GMMTV, I feel like it would have been more popular, because it wouldn't have been drowned in the constant noise that the thing is, like, GMMTV shows are also all competing for your attention. So like literally last week there were like only BL airing for GMMTV. Like on Tuesday it was Cat for Cash, Wednesday Burnout Syndrome, then you had like I forgot which one, Dare to Death, Dare You to Death. What else? Like, there were like 5 or 6 different BLs airing the same week. And the fact of the matter is that yes, GMMTV is always the winner because they have produced all 5 or 6 shows, but these 5 or 6 shows are also competing with your attention as a viewer. And so most GMMTV viewers are out of the 5 or 6 shows are only gonna watch 1 or 2 or 3 max, because like we all have a finite amount of time on this world and we have very busy lives. And so I feel like in some way, this show would have been more popular. I genuinely can see it be a Wabi Sabi show. And not just because it was directed by New Siwash, who, I'm pretty sure still works with Wabi Sabi, studio. But I feel like it would have been a lot bigger, because if like Forever You, the Forever You project can be super popular when it was mediocre as fuck, no shade. I feel like this would have been bigger in another studio than GMMTV, and unfortunately it got drowned under the weight of other bigger shows with bigger actors. Next, my rating. I gave this show an 8 out of 10. I, again, really enjoyed this show. I thought the writing was solid. Honestly, I've mostly just given it compliments. I thought, like, it really did what it set out to do, if not better than I ever expected it would. And it's not a life-changing show. It didn't play on topics that I related to or that particularly touched me. So that's why it's only an 8. Because for me, like, if it's an 8.5, I need to be a little bit more touched than that. But I still really enjoyed this show. I thought it was a very solid show. And so yeah, it deserves an 8. And lastly, who would like this show? I think, honestly, this is a very, like, widely lovable BL. I think it has some aspects of, like, more old school BL. So if you like BL circa, like, 2018, 2019, 2020, I think you would really like this BL. I think most people would like it, honestly. I don't really see who wouldn't like it. Unless you, like, can't get into the rivals to lovers, or I don't know, but I think you would like it. So I think it's a widely, like, lovable show. Which is why I was surprised there wasn't more hype about this show, because I think, honestly, it was better than a lot of shows that are bigger at GMMTV, but that's just me. Yeah, I think that was it for today's episode, and the last episode of Axelle's Guide to Thai Dramas. That feels so weird to say. I just want to say again that I'm so proud of what this series has been. I had so much fun doing it, and I really, I'm glad that I ended on a show that I actually enjoyed. It would have been so dreadful if the last episode was a show that I was, like, criticizing from top to bottom, but no, this was a good show. Not the best, but a good show, and I'm really happy to be ending on a positive note. So yeah, that was it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And unfortunately, I will not see you next week, but I'll for sure see you again. Bye bye.